Women are the first educators of their children. They are in a unique position to spot signs of radicalization and extremism, and they're also in a very pivotal position to try and deal with that. And I think we have to empower women to recognize this, to recognize the signs, and give them tools as to how to deal with that. But could you comment on the Sisters Against Violent Extremism and the overall effort to try and use women more effectively and mothers more effectively in this fight against extremism, and to really quash this ideological growth?
Thank you very much for that question. I talked a lot about the ideology and where it stems, and I don't need to explain to all of you how important family is. And as a young person grows up, this question of identity, the confusion, asking questions, these millennials are experiencing something that no other generation has experienced. And in the context of a post-9/11 world, that's why I said the numbers are massive. 1/4 of the planet is Muslim. 1.6 billion people, 62% of that number is under the age of 30. These are millennials that have grown up looking at their life in a very different way. Everybody has an identity crisis, okay? It doesn't matter what religion you are. But something specific is happening to a generation that has grown up in the context of 9/11, asking questions that their parents and their grandparents didn't ask. And as they're dealing with this sense of identity and belonging, they're looking for answers. And the answers that they always go to are not traditional necessarily. It isn't the cleric necessarily. It is not the elder person in the village, town, or city. It is Sheikh Google who answers a lot of these questions for them. The reason why women are important is for two reasons. One, as you said, the mothers are the child's first teachers. They're seeing things with their children. They're beginning to see changes happening. If you're looking at some of the radicalization processes and you go back and you talk to the parents, they have seen signs. Mothers talk about things that they have seen. They influence the ecosystem within the home. Very, very important. But there's another piece of this, and that other piece of this is how you use women to mobilize their perspective globally and connect those things. That's where we began to look at models that would work on a grassroots level that are very local and are inspired by regular people. It wasn't government coming in and saying something. In the Bush administration, we looked at the model of Mothers Against Drunk Driving here in America and said, how did that get off the ground? How do we build this? And we began to think about what would happen if we began to build a network of like-minded women who could push back against extremist ideologies, and seeded Sisters Against Violent Extremism with an incredible woman named Edith Schaffler in Vienna, and gave her a small seed grant to get this off the ground, and asked her to move it forward. Right now, it's all these years later, it's an independent organization that has chapters all over the world, but she's mobilized and built a network of women to push back, to talk about things, to put the lessons that she's learned on the table. That's one piece of the complexity with women and extremism, okay? The other is what's happening to Muslim women. And that's the other piece, if you wouldn't mind, I'll just spend a moment on.
No, I think that was my second question, so
okay.
You're heading in the right direction.
So in my role as Special Representative to Muslim communities, one of the most impressive points to me was that what I thought had happened in Europe, this identity crisis, was not just minorities living in Europe, but oh my goodness, this was happening to Muslims in Muslim majority countries as well. So this idea of an identity crisis from Malaysia to Argentina with Muslims matters to us. And it matters very boldly, because as people are asking these questions, as I said, the vacuum is being filled by narratives that come from extremists. That doesn't leave women out of the picture. These are digital natives. They are connected with a swish of their finger on their, smartphone. They're getting ideas that are bouncing around the world. And what did I see as Special Representative? I began to see a change in the way this generation of young Muslim women began to think about themselves, think about their role. And so you're seeing a two-pronged thing. One, you can absolutely use women, and you should, to stop the stem of radicalization, to understand what's happening in the home. The other point is, we are beginning to see women getting radicalized in a very big way. Right.
If I could for a second, that there's an irony there, because in many of these groups, the place of women is